Jules, open the door.
Charleston, South Carolina, the city of fairy tale dreams, of prestigious families, and of meticulously planned, lavish parties. Just like the Autumn Rose Garden Party, my sister, Penelope, and my distinguished brother-in-law, Theodore Sloan IV, are trying to throw. There's just one small problem: they chose the wrong venue. More accurately, they chose the right venue. This historic house, my pride and my everything. But they forgot one crucial detail: to ask the owner's permission. That would be me, Juliet Caldwell, also known as Jules, the failure of a sister by my family's definition. You see, this house isn't the Sloan family estate as the glamorous invitations claim. It's the result of 6 years of me working my ass off at 3 jobs at once, of dinners of instant noodles and bread, of weekends buried in a library studying restoration architecture instead of dating or partying. Every antique brick, every square foot of original oak flooring I meticulously restored, every pot of petunias I planted myself on that balcony, all of it is soaked in my sweat, my tears, and my overlooked dreams. While my sister Penny easily stepped into a life of luxury through a suitable marriage, I, Jules, built my own world from scratch, piece by piece. My family? They call it wasting my youth. My mother, Eleonora, always sighs whenever she sees me splattered with paint. My father, Arthur, only cares about when I'll finally settle down like Penny. They're used to me always giving in, always putting their needs first. They're used to easy Jules. So when they decided to turn my house, my pride and joy, into a stage for their frivolous social climbing, they assumed I would once again obediently accept. They even went so far as to give my house key to the event planner, letting strangers freely enter my private space. But they were wrong. This time, Easy Jules decided the limit of her endurance had been crossed. Right before their grand party, I did one small thing. I changed all the locks. And now, as the distinguished guests from the Beaumont family and all of Charleston's high society stand before a locked door, I wonder, will they learn a valuable lesson about respect and inviolable boundaries? Or is this just the beginning of a family tragicomedy? This story isn't just about locks. It's about finding your own voice, about standing up to protect what you've poured your blood, sweat, and tears into building. Have you ever felt invisible in your own home or in your own family? Share your feelings and let me know where you're following this story from. And if you believe everyone deserves respect, don't hesitate to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel to follow all the drama, and share this video with anyone who needs a little more courage to say no. Trust me, the main event is just getting started. To understand why I acted so decisively on the day of my sister Penelope's grand party, perhaps we need to rewind a bit to see how I got that house. Penny's life and mine were like 2 parallel lines, rarely intersecting in terms of values or how we achieved our goals. While Penny, at 25, was comfortably settled in luxury after marrying Theodore Sloan IV, the heir to the prestigious Sterling family, I, Jules Caldwell, had to carve my own path, building everything from scratch. After graduating from college with an architecture degree and a sizable student loan, I threw myself into the work grind like a moth to a flame. Early mornings, I was a barista at a small coffee shop near my old campus, the smell of roasted coffee clinging to my clothes. During the day, I was an office assistant for an interior design firm, absorbing every bit of practical experience. At night, I hustled as a waitress at a noisy Italian restaurant. For 6 years, I crammed myself into a tiny studio apartment in the suburbs, with water-stained walls and difficult neighbors, just to pinch every single dollar. My parents, Arthur and Eleonora Caldwell, always thought I was crazy. Wasting your youth, my mother would often sigh during rare family dinners. Look at your sister Penny, Jules, living in a mansion in West Ashley with Theo, attending glamorous charity galas. That's success, dear. They never understood, or perhaps never wanted to, that I had a different vision, a burning desire for independence, for creating lasting value myself. After 6 brutal years, with my meager savings and a portfolio of small freelance projects, I boldly founded my own interior design firm. The early days were anything but glamorous. I took the smallest jobs, from decorating a nursery to consulting on paint colors for a condo. I taught myself how to build a website, took my own before and after photos for Instagram, and tried to muscle my way into industry networking events where I sometimes felt completely out of place. But eventually, the relentless effort began to pay off. One satisfied client recommended another. My Instagram page gradually gained a following. I started to make a name for myself, and then, 3 years ago, I found it. The house of my dreams. A classic Charleston single house, built in the 1920s, nestled on a street shaded by old oak trees. The house had a charming historic beauty with original architectural details, but it was in a state of severe disrepair, needing a loving hand to bring it back to life. The real estate agent even tried to talk me out of it. "It's a money pit, Miss Caldwell," she warned, but I saw the potential behind the peeling wallpaper and creaky floors. I negotiated a reasonable price and signed the sales contract with hands trembling from excitement. That year, I was 29, and I owned a piece of Charleston history. The renovation process took nearly 2 years, a labor of love and tears. I did what I could myself, from scraping old paint and sanding the hardwood floors to hunting for antique furniture at flea markets. For the more complex jobs, I called on contractor friends I knew from work. Every decision, from restoring the original French windows to choosing the perfect navy blue for the kitchen cabinets, was carefully considered. The final result was incredible. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, a sun-drenched reading nook overlooking the back balcony, and a lovely little garden that was beginning to burst with color every spring. The jewel of the house was the wide piazza that wrapped around the first floor, where I'd often sit with my morning coffee, watching the historic neighborhood slowly wake up. Did my family appreciate it? Not really. At the housewarming party I threw last year, my father, Arthur, walked around the house with a scrutinizing eye. "Hope you didn't overpay for this place," he muttered, tapping on a wall as if checking its structure. "This neighborhood seems fine now, but who knows in 5-10 years?" Meanwhile, my sister Penny and Theo arrived 2 hours late, carrying a tiny gift bag with a scented candle inside, the exact kind I'd seen on sale at the supermarket the week before. "It's cute," Penny said, her eyes darting around with a socialite smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Very you. Small, but cozy." She didn't fail to mention that her husband's mansion was many times larger, and that their swimming pool alone was bigger than my entire first floor. Despite it all, I still tried to keep the family peace. I hosted Thanksgiving last year, though I received little help. I still attended Penny's bizarre themed parties, including the so-called yacht and champagne gala, where everyone had to dress in sailor attire. I still patiently listened to my mother Eleonora's not-so-subtle hints that I should freeze my eggs before it's too late. The most recent family dinner was 3 weeks ago. I had just landed a huge contract, redesigning the entire main lobby and 5 specialty suites for a historic boutique hotel in downtown Charleston. It was the biggest contract of my career so far. "Oh, that's nice, dear," my mother said, her eyes not leaving the steak she was cutting. "Penny, tell Jules about your fundraiser. Maybe she'll get some ideas for that little business of hers." And so began a 20-minute monologue from Penny about how she had successfully organized a charity auction, raising $50,000 for the Children's Hospital. Admirable, sure, but the reality was Penny wasn't even on the hospital board. She had simply leveraged the Sloan family connections to invite wealthy people into a room to spend money. The way my parents looked at her with such pride, you'd think Penny had personally performed life-saving surgery on those children. I was listlessly picking at my dessert, planning my escape, when my phone vibrated. A text from my cousin, Willow. "Hey, Jules. A little confused. Is Penny throwing a party at your place next weekend? She's showing everyone pictures of your garden and bragging about an amazing garden party at the historic family property. Thought you should know." I stared at the text, stunned, then looked up at Penny laughing with my father at the other end of the table. A chill ran down my spine. I knew this was just the beginning of the most ridiculous family tragicomedy I had ever known. The very next morning, I started investigating. It didn't take long to find the evidence. On Penny's public Instagram profile was an elaborately designed digital invitation for an event called An Afternoon in Bloom, a garden party and summit. The background image was unmistakably my garden, captured in the peak of spring when the hydrangeas were a stunning blue and the antique roses were in full, glorious bloom. The caption read, "Join us at the historic Sloan family estate for an afternoon of connection and conversation. Limited invitations, VIPs only. Catering by Marcel's, private parking available." My hands trembled as I scrolled through the comments, all from people I didn't know, buzzing about how excited they were to finally tour the Sloan estate. Penny had even replied coyly, "We've kept this place private for years, but it's time to open our doors to the right people." The Sloan family had never owned any estate in this area. My parents lived in a perfectly normal 4-bedroom house in the suburbs. The only historic estate connected to the Caldwell name, not Sloan, was my house, bought and restored by me single-handedly. Rage boiled up inside me. Not a single question, not an ounce of respect. They were brazenly turning my home, the fruit of my labor, into a stage for their social theatrics. I couldn't believe the audacity. I immediately called Penelope. The phone rang 4 times before Penny picked up, her voice tinged with the kind of annoyance that suggested I'd interrupted something critically important on a Tuesday at 10 in the morning. "What is it, Jules?" "Penelope," I said, trying to keep my voice steady even as my chest was simmering. "Why is there an invitation being passed around with a picture of my house on it, saying it's the venue for your party?" "Oh, that?" Penny replied with an unbelievable casualness. "I was going to tell you later. It's a networking event for Theo's business partners and a few potential investors. It's very important, Jules." "At my house? Without asking me a single word?" I nearly shouted. "Don't be so dramatic," Penny said, her voice starting to get irritated. "It's just for one afternoon. Mom and Dad thought it was a wonderful idea. We thought you'd be happy to have a chance to help the family build more connections. Besides, your house is so spacious, and it's not like you ever use it for any proper parties." I almost choked on her words. "Whether I throw parties or not is irrelevant, Penelope. It's my house, an asset I bought with my own money. You can't just decide to host an event there." "Mom and Dad already agreed on your behalf?" Penny shot back, as if that solved everything. "They said you're always looking for ways to contribute to the family. They have no right to give anyone permission to use my house on my behalf," I growled. "All right, look, I have to go. The event planner, Mrs. Du Bois from Charleston Charm Events, is calling. They're stopping by your place tomorrow to measure the garden space and check the kitchen facilities." "What? You gave strangers a key to my house?" I screamed, unable to believe my ears. "It's just the spare set Mom and Dad have always kept. Don't worry, they're very professional. Look, I really have to go. We can talk more at dinner on Sunday." Penny hung up before I could react. I immediately dialed my parents. My mother, Eleonora, answered, and just as Penny had said, she confirmed everything. "Jules, don't be so selfish," my mother scolded, her voice dripping with reproach. "Your sister, Penny, needs this. The Sloans are inviting very important people, including the powerful Beaumont family. Penny wants to impress them. Their house is being painted that week, dust everywhere. Then she should postpone the party or find another venue." I countered, "You can't just decide for me that someone can use my house." "It's just one day. What's the big deal?" My father, Arthur, cut in from another phone. "Besides, it's good for you to participate in family initiatives. You're always isolating yourself with that little design business of yours." I hung up, feeling like I was about to lose my mind. My family, were they always this condescending and dismissive of my boundaries? It got worse when I checked my email and found one from Charleston Charm Events with a detailed schedule for the garden party at the Caldwell residence. According to the schedule, the event wasn't just in my garden, but guests were also invited to freely tour the ground floor rooms of the house. There was even a note for the homeowner to please secure any valuables from the main areas, as if I were a hotel employee being instructed to prepare a room for a guest. My endurance had reached its limit. But the final straw came the next day. I had installed a camera security system after I moved in, mainly for peace of mind living alone. At that moment, I was in an important client meeting when my phone buzzed with a motion alert from my front door. I discreetly checked the app and froze when I saw 2 women and a man in a catering company uniform on my porch, fumbling with a key in the lock. I quickly excused myself from the client, stepped outside, and immediately called my home's landline number. One of the caterers answered. He explained they were there to check the kitchen specifications for Mrs. Hadokar, Sloane's party. "There must be some mistake," I said firmly, my voice thick with anger. "I am the owner of this house, and I have not authorized any party. Please leave my property immediately." They apologized profusely and left, clearly embarrassed and confused. Later, after a clarifying call from the event company, I learned that Penny had told them it was the Sloanes' second family home, and that the sister staying there was aware of all the arrangements. This level of deceit and arrogance was unacceptable. It was at that moment, when the rage and sense of betrayal peaked, that an idea began to form in my mind. They wanted to turn my house into a stage? Fine. But they were going to pay for this play. That evening, after I'd told the caterers to leave my house, I sat alone in the kitchen, trying to push down the swirling rage and sense of violation. I was so stressed I had to clean the entire kitchen even though it was already spotless, a weird habit I have whenever I feel overwhelmed. Just then, my phone pinged with a new message. It was a group text I'd been accidentally added to, a conversation between Penelope and her best friend, Trixie. "Penny," Trixie texted, "is everything okay with the caterers? Heard there was a little hiccup?" Penny replied a moment later, her tone making it sound like a trivial matter. "They just reported back that the homeowner kicked them out. Sigh. It's just fussy Jules. I'll handle her. It's just her house, what's the big deal? It's not like she has an important life or any high-caliber connections to protect. Theo's guests, especially the Beaumonts, are coming. For God's sake, she should be grateful we're even bringing truly successful people to her little project house." I stared at the phone, numb. Little project house. The beautiful historic home I had poured my heart, soul, and entire savings into restoring. Unimportant life. The growing interior design firm I had built from nothing. Something inside me, a final thread of endurance, snapped. It was no longer anger or betrayal. It was a profound pain, a wound that cut to the core as I realized that in my sister's eyes, in my family's eyes, my efforts and I were worthless. Tears started to flow uncontrollably. For the first time in years, I cried. Not silent tears, but ugly, shuddering sobs that left my eyes puffy and my nose red. I cried for the little girl Jules who always came in second, for the teenager whose academic achievements were just a footnote at family gatherings, and for the grown woman still chasing approval from people who would never give it. When the last tears finally stopped, I felt empty, but strangely, my mind was clearer than ever. I reached for the wine in the cabinet, poured a full glass, and then dialed the number of the one person who always saw the real me, who believed in me unconditionally. Gabby Diaz, my best friend. "They did what?" Gabby screamed into the phone after I recounted the entire story, her voice filled with outrage. "Jules, that's not just rude, it's trespassing. They can't just use your house like that." "Apparently in the Caldwell logic, they can, Gabby," I replied, my voice hoarse, taking a large gulp of wine. "I've always been family property, so I guess my house is too, right? This isn't about borrowing a sweater or sharing a Netflix account, Jules." Gabby said, her voice sharp. "This is your house, your safe space, the thing you worked your ass off for years to get, and they just co-opted it?" Having someone else articulate the violation made it feel more real, more valid. This wasn't me being oversensitive. This was truly unacceptable. "I don't even know what to do anymore," I confessed, my voice full of helplessness. "If I just say no again, they'll keep pressuring me. Or worse, they might just show up with their guests since they have a key." "First," Gabby said decisively, "you need to talk to Julian Vance. Immediately. Julian, our friend from college, he's a great lawyer now. Real estate and civil disputes. You need to know your exact legal rights here. And second, you're coming to my place tonight. The guest room is ready." I started to refuse, but Gabby was insistent. An hour later, I was sitting in Gabby's cozy living room with a fresh glass of wine and Julian Vance on speakerphone. "Let me get this straight, Jules." Julian said after I'd explained everything, his voice calm and professional. "Your sister, without your permission or even prior knowledge, planned a major event at your house, gave keys to vendors, and intended to invite dozens of strangers into your home. And when you objected, your family basically told you to get over it? That's a pretty good summary, I replied, a hint of sarcasm in my voice. Jules, legally, this is very clear, Julian affirmed. It's your property. You are under no obligation to allow this to happen. You could press charges against anyone who enters your home without your permission for trespassing. I don't want to call the cops on my own family, I sighed. I get that, Julian replied. But you should know you have every right to take necessary measures to protect your property. For example, changing the locks would be a reasonable step if unauthorized people are in possession of a key. After hanging up with Julian, Gabby and I talked long into the night. Gabby reminded me of the countless times my family had taken advantage of my easygoing nature. The loans Penny took and never paid back. The holidays I had to organize single-handedly without any help. The way they always downplayed my career while expecting me to celebrate every minor achievement of my sisters. Remember Willow's wedding? Gabby asked. When your mother Eleonora volunteered you to do all the centerpieces for free and then introduced you to people as my daughter who does crafts for fun? I still remember you spending over $2,000 on materials and pulling all-nighters for 2 straight weeks to finish them. Or the time your father Arthur needed his insurance office redesigned. You did it at cost, and he still complained about the bill. They've always been like that, I admitted, my voice bitter. I just always hoped that if I tried hard enough, did well enough, they'd finally see me. Gabby took my hand, her eyes firm. Jules, they're never gonna change. Not unless you make them. People don't change when things are working out just fine for them. And right now, having you as the family doormat is working out great for them. That night, sleeping in Gabby's guest room, I had a strange dream about my house. In the dream, I returned to find it packed with strangers in fancy clothes. They were touching my things, sitting on my sofa, even critiquing my decor. I tried to scream at them to leave, but no sound came out. I was invisible in my own home. I woke up with a start, my heart pounding, drenched in sweat. And in that very moment, a decision, hard as stone, was formed. No more hesitation. The next morning, just as the sun peeked over the historic rooftops of Charleston, I sat at my desk, not to sketch interior designs, but to map out a detailed campaign. My phone still held angry texts from Penelope after last night's call, but I no longer cared. The decision had been made. I texted Gabby, "Can I crash at your place for about 10 days? I have a plan." Gabby replied almost instantly, "My guest room always welcomes you. What are we about to do?" I smiled. Unlike my own flesh and blood, Gabby was always on my side, no questions asked. "We're going to teach my family a lesson about respect and boundaries," I texted back. "And I might need your help moving a few things." Throughout that day, in between client meetings, I made critical calls. First was Mateo, the best locksmith in the city, recommended by Julian Vance. I explained the situation and asked him to change all the locks on my house and upgrade to a smart security system within the next 2 days. Mateo, a man of few words but with a trustworthy demeanor, agreed. Next, I called a storage rental company to reserve a secure unit. Finally, I informed Nora, my assistant, that I would be working remotely for about a week due to some family matters that need resolving. That evening, as I was packing a suitcase with some essentials at my house, the phone rang. It was Penelope. The people from Charleston Charm Events must have reported back to her about me asking them to leave the day before. "Jules?" Penny's voice came through, full of her usual annoyance and condescension. "The event planner says you're being difficult. Why did you tell the catering company to leave? That's so unprofessional." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Penelope, I'm going to say this one more time, and this is the last time. I do not consent to you hosting any party at my house. I am not hosting that party. You need to find another venue." "But all the invitations have been sent," Penny shrieked. "Theo's guests, including important partners from his law firm, are coming. The Beaumont family has confirmed. Do you have any idea how hard it was for me to get them to agree on a specific date?" "That's not my problem, Penny," I replied, surprised at the calmness in my own voice. You should have asked me before you sent out invitations with my address on them. Mom and Dad are furious with you, Penny switched to a threatening tone. They say you're always selfish, but this is just too much. The familiar pang of guilt pricked at me, but this time I pushed it aside. Goodbye, Penelope. Good luck with your party. I think the country club in Mount Pleasant has some lovely gardens. I hung up and, without hesitation, blocked Penny's number. Immediately after, I blocked my parents' numbers as well, at least temporarily. I knew once my plan was set in motion, the calls would become relentless. As I looked around my beautiful home, at the custom bookshelves I had assembled myself, the vintage chandelier I had painstakingly restored, the perfect sage green paint I'd tested 15 samples to find, a fierce sense of protectiveness washed over me. This wasn't just a house. It was tangible proof of everything I had achieved on my own, despite my family's lack of faith. No one was going to take it from me, not even for a day, not without consequences. Early the next morning, after making my final decision, I woke up and began a meticulous task, documenting the state of everything in the house. I took detailed photos of every room, opened every drawer to inventory its contents, paying special attention to valuable or irreplaceable items. It wasn't that I thought my family would steal, but I had zero trust in the strangers they planned to invite into my home. By noon, Gabby arrived with coffee and reinforcements. Annika and Skylar, two of our other best friends who had volunteered to help with Operation Boundary. All right, General, what's the plan of attack? Annika asked, raising her coffee cup in a salute. I laid out the plan for them. First, we pack up everything valuable, sentimental heirlooms, and anything I would be heartbroken to lose. It's all going to the storage unit. Second, Mateo the locksmith is coming tomorrow to change all the locks and install a new security system I can monitor remotely. Third, I'm temporarily moving into Gabby's guest house until after the scheduled party date. And then? Skylar asked, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. I smiled. Then I'm going to sit back and watch the chaos unfold when they show up to throw a fancy garden party at a house they can't get into. We spent the entire day carefully packing my grandmother's china, my collection of first edition design books, the art I had accumulated over the years, and my jewelry. I took down family photos, secured important documents, and even packed away my favorite clothes. By evening, my SUV and Gabby's car were filled with boxes headed for the storage unit I'd rented. What about the furniture? Annika asked as we collapsed onto my sofa with pizza and soda, exhausted. Too much work to move, I replied. And honestly, I'm not that worried about the furniture. I just don't want them in my space, touching my personal things and acting like they own the place I worked so damn hard for. The next day, Mateo and his team arrived. He was a serious man in his 50s who listened carefully as I explained the situation. Family trouble, huh? He said with an understanding nod. See it a lot. Don't you worry, Miss Caldwell. By tonight, only your fingerprint or your permission will open these doors. They spent hours replacing every lock, installing a smart doorbell system, and setting up additional security cameras that would send alerts to my phone. Mateo walked me through the new app, showing me how to monitor all entrances remotely and even speak through the doorbell if needed. Nobody gets in unless you want them to, he guaranteed, not even with the old keys. I paid him extra for the rush job and his discretion. By that evening, my house was securely locked down, with only Gabby and me having access through the new system. The final stage of the plan was for me to move into Gabby's guest house, a garage she'd converted into a charming living space in her backyard, complete with its own bathroom and kitchenette. Then, welcome to your temporary rebel headquarters, Gabby said, helping me unpack. How are you feeling? Nervous, I admitted, but also powerful. I've never really stood up to them like this before. It's about damn time, Gabby said firmly. I'm proud of you. The next few days at Gabby's rebel headquarters passed in a strange quiet, the calm before the storm. I tried to focus on working remotely, but my mind constantly drifted to my historic house and what was about to unfold. I kept checking the security app on my phone, even though I knew Mateo and his team had done their job perfectly. And then, the first test of the new security system arrived. just 2 days after I'd moved in with Gabby. My phone buzzed with a motion alert from the front door. I immediately opened the app and saw a woman in a smart business suit ringing my doorbell. It was undoubtedly Mrs. Soar Dubois from Charleston Charm Events, the one Penny had mentioned. I watched her frown, double-check the address on her phone, and then ring the bell again, her expression growing more impatient. After a few minutes with no answer, she pulled out her phone to call someone, looking very annoyed. 20 minutes later, my phone lit up with another motion alert. This time, it wasn't just Mrs. Dubois, but Penelope herself at my front door. I clearly saw Penny's initial confusion turn quickly to irritation as she tried the old set of keys in the new lock. The key wouldn't even go in. The look on her face was priceless. My phone, which had Penny's number blocked, started showing a series of missed calls from unknown numbers. She was clearly borrowing other people's phones to try and reach me. I ignored them all. That evening, I received a long email from Penelope. The subject line was in all caps. "Your childish behavior is unacceptable." The body of the email was a tirade of angry, scolding words and a bit of manipulative pleading. "Jules, you changed the locks? Are you serious? Mom and Dad are going crazy over this. This party is in 3 days. Some of the most important people in Theo's industry will be there. The Beaumont family has confirmed. Do you want to be responsible for ruining your sister's social standing and affecting Theo's career? Call me back immediately." I read the email without emotion. No anger, no guilt, just a weariness and an even stronger resolve. I didn't reply. I also didn't reply to the texts from other aunts and uncles, who had clearly been asked by my mother Eleonora and father Arthur to persuade me. However, Willow, my kind cousin, sent a supportive text. "I'm not exactly sure what's going on between you and Penny, but I have a guess she did something really out of line. Stay strong. Jules!" Willow's text was a breath of fresh air in the middle of the storm. The day before the scheduled party, the calls and texts reached their peak. My mother, Eleonora, had found a way to reach me through my company's office landline, the only number I hadn't blocked. She left a long voicemail, her voice full of disappointment and anger. "Juliet Caldwell." My mother's voice rang out, cold and stern. "I don't know what game you're playing, but it needs to stop immediately. Your father and I are so disappointed in you. After everything we've done for you, is this how you repay us? By embarrassing your sister in front of so many people? The catering has been booked, the flowers have been paid for, and 40 very important guests are expecting a lovely event tomorrow. You need to call us back and fix the situation now." Everything they've done for me? I wondered to myself. What they'd done was constantly criticize my choices, downplay my achievements, and use me whenever it was convenient. I deleted the voicemail without a second thought. That night, Gabby, Annika, Skylar, and I huddled in Gabby's guest house. We opened a good bottle of wine and watched the security app on my tablet. It was fascinating to see different vendors, from the florist to the lighting and sound crew, show up at my door throughout the evening, presumably for final preparations. And every single one of them had to leave in a state of confusion and bewilderment when no one answered the door or their phones. "Tomorrow is going to be epic," Skylar said, pouring more wine into my glass. "Are you ready, Jules?" I took a deep breath. I think so. A part of me felt terrible about the chaos that was about to happen, but another part, as Gabby said, was reveling in the feeling of standing up for myself for the first time in my life. "Exactly," I nodded. "Then let's toast to that," Annika said, raising her glass. "To boundaries and self-respect." We clinked our glasses, the sound of crystal ringing cheerfully. I tried to ignore the nervous butterflies fluttering in my stomach. Tomorrow would either be a turning point in my family relationships or the beginning of an even bigger rift. Either way, there was no turning back now.